So the major factors of the grading will be as follows. First of all will be completeness. All the required parts present in the report. Okay, is anything missing? How much is missing? Little things, big things, I don't know. Particularly in terms of the report, pay attention to the components because you don't want to miss components. In other words, if I read the report and say the motherboard is missing from the report, lots of points will be deducted because the motherboard is connecting to everything else. Okay. On the other hand, if an optical drive is not specified, I'm not going to take any points off because you might want to put together a system that does not have an internal optical drive. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. And also the rationale, you have to explain, how, let's say, your motherboard is compatible with all the other components that you have selected. Okay, so that's the rationale part. Correctness. Is the reasoning correct? Okay, in other words, if someone says, oh, this motherboard is an Intel motherboard, and here I just need to pick one of the Intel processors, that would not be the right reasoning. Okay, so points will be deducted because of that. Okay, so it has to be the right rationale when you select components. Are components in fact compatible? Okay, so that kind of brings us back to the previous example. Are there any mismatch of components? Basically, they're all bring into the same point. In other words, someone may say, I want a computer that is small that I can put behind a bookcase or something like that, and then at the same time specify a full-size ATX motherboard. That won't be compatible. Okay, if you specify a case that can only accommodate a micro ATX motherboard, but you select an ATX motherboard, then it won't fit. Okay. Unless that person also write in the report, I'm going to duct tape the motherboard on the outside of the case, then I would just, look at it kind of strangely and write some comments about it instead of deducting points. Are the right criteria specifications used to select components? Okay, I'm selecting an Intel i3 processor because I like the number 3 better than the number 5. That would not be the right, the right reason to select a component.
Because it's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper. Now, if it's cheaper, that's okay, but you have to make sure that it still has enough processing power to do what you want the system to do. And then the overall presentation, not an oral presentation, but the overall written presentation is also important. Is the report written and presented in a way that is easy to read? Okay, is the report written so that the reader, me, does not need to look up an urban dictionary or understand texting abbreviations? Well, some people do that. I have received email messages with later as in later, but that's actually redundant because later, if you use texting abbreviation, should be later, okay, or even L8R is later. The T is already in the 8. Yeah, so some people, when they use texting abbreviations, don't even get it right. Okay, and yes, this part will be somewhat subjective because the presentation has to make my job easier. Okay, so it's based on my reading style, which is fairly flexible. I mean, I read a lot of technical documents, so it can be completely dry with just the facts and just the reasoning. That's perfectly fine. Okay, I don't want a poetry version of the report either. Okay, that can be a little bit difficult to find all the facts. You can do it for your presentation. This is a 3-minute poem of the report that I have written. This is the poem version of it. So the exact point values will be assigned later. So I will talk about how many points to each thing later on because there's a lot of stuff in it. Are there any questions about the report?
When is it due?
It's right here. It's due on the Thursday after the Thanksgiving break. So you have 9 days from today to work on it.
Good.
Well, if you have been working on it so far, it's just a matter of organizing everything. Yep.
You said you wanted the electronic copy submitted to the Dropbox?
Yes. Yeah. Drop it off in the Dropbox and I will show you how to drop into the Dropbox. Before I can do that, there's one submission already.
Yeah, I did that because I missed class on Thursday and thought it was still due today. So.
Oh, you can always resubmit
I'm gonna have
a more
to,
detailed version if you want
you
to.
added stuff to it.
Yep, some stuff, not a whole lot. So if I log in as a student, I can show you what it looks like. You go to the homework assignment, and then at the very end, you will see an upload interface. So you can specify a file to upload. In this case, I don't have any specific file for this. I'll just upload one of my existing files. And then you click upload this file, and make sure this message appears. Okay, once it appears, you can click continue, and you can go back to the homework assignment. It gives you a link to the file that you have uploaded. In other words, you upload a file, and if you're not sure whether it is the file that you want to upload, you can download the file back again, double check, make sure it is the file that you want to upload. Any questions about this? Yep.
Why do the rest of the school system use D2L when this is so much easier?
Well, I think some professors can argue that D2L is easier from their perspectives. Moodle has existed before D2L was adopted. Basically, back in the Blackboard days, some professors, and therefore the name of this website, have kind of gathered together and say, well, Blackboard is not exactly stable. Okay, it kicks people out of exams and quizzes and whatnot. And I have been using Moodle since 2003 or 2002, but only for myself. And then other professors caught on and say, hey, we want in, we want to use Moodle too. Once I demonstrated what Moodle looks like, they say, well, we want to use Moodle, and therefore, we started to use Moodle instead of Blackboard before they phased out Blackboard to become D2L. When they selected D2L, as the next, LMS, Learning Management System, Moodle was actually one of the choices. Moodle was on the, on the list of alternatives. But because there was no direct migration path from Blackboard to Moodle, they decided that Moodle would not be a suitable choice. There is an automated tool to import Blackboard classes and test banks and whatnot into D2L, but not into Moodle.
From the student's perspective, Moodle's a lot easier to use.
You think so? I mean,
Yeah.
I have no idea because I don't
for
use
uploading files, because when I try to upload my English papers, you have to go through like 5 different windows just to upload it.
It depends, because the D2L that I've had with my other computer classes, you've only had to go to the Dropbox, and if it's set up properly, you just go to the Dropbox and
drop it.
upload it.
Moodle looks a lot cleaner than D2L does. Moodle looks a lot cleaner than D2L does.
That's the same.
Oh, that depends on how how I organize stuff too. Yep, go ahead.
I use both systems and I like it. It's a lot easier to read.
When Moodle gives you only one big piece, it doesn't have any collapsed listing of stuff, which is both its strength and also its weakness. If I want to put a lot of stuff in Moodle, it does get cluttered up pretty quickly. Whereas D2L has a collapsing type of way to organize material, so you can actually navigate and find stuff a little bit more easily. I don't like the fact that D2L uses frames a lot. In other words, you use a frame inside a frame inside a frame, and each frame, if you don't have a bigger screen, each frame has its own horizontal and vertical scroll bar. That part bothers me to no end. Yeah, whereas in Moodle, you can downsize the screen to really small before it has any type of horizontal scroll bar appearing. So they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Are there any questions so far about the report itself? No questions? Shall we go back and continue on the Scratch topic? Yep, go ahead.
I have a question about the homework.
Yep.
If the cost is part of our criteria, do we have to include the cost of the application?
Yes, you should. Yep. Because it is one of the components. So the operating system itself and also the applications have to be included in terms of the overall cost of the system. But you can also factor in like student discounts and whatnot, to lower that number. Go ahead.
If their program's already on.
If the program is already,
If you already own it.
Then you don't have. Then you can just say already have a license of the software, and therefore it does not need to be added. Yep.
When you're writing down the description of each component, does the stuff like retail, model number, all that, do you want that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All that information.
Well, enough information so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so
Yep.
the model number.
Yeah, it cannot be just like a i5. Okay, you have to tell me it's i5 dash whatever, because there are different variants of the i5, your core i5 processor. You cannot just say it's DDR3 memory, because I need to know how fast, what is the speed grade of the memory, as well as how much you're going to specify.
What I'm saying is like at the bottom here you have model number, retail number, like all that the miscellaneous stuff. Do you want that too? I don't know if that is important.
It has to be enough so that I can actually look up Newegg and find exactly the part that you're specifying.
All right.
So it does not have to be any more specific than that. Okay. So there is a lot of detail in the whole thing, but that's basically what you have to go through also if you are to actually put a system together. One trick is to actually use the shopping cart of Newegg or the wish list. They have both concepts, and use those. Use that to help you organize all the parts. So at the very end, you will just you just have to print out the wish list or the shopping cart from Newegg, and then just reshuffle the ordering of the parts, and you're done. Well, you have to kind of copy and paste some of the material too, but that's a really good way to organize all the components and make sure you don't miss anything.
Shopping cart, right?
Yeah, shopping cart. But the shopping cart concept appears to be specific to a computer. In other words, if you use one computer to do some shopping and then you go to another computer to continue your shopping, the shopping cart is different. So
create an account, right?
you have to create an account and use the wish list in that case to organize your items.
Okay.
I use the wish list a lot because you can actually have multiple wish lists, so you can put together like different systems, or have different stuff organized by wish lists. Okay. Any other questions? Yep. Go ahead.
How big a deal is case latency on RAM?
I don't think we need to put that in. If you want to put that in, that's fine. If you have two components or two RAMs and they're rated at the same speed, but the case is different, if you want to get into that, you can actually use it as a criterion. But since we didn't talk about it in the class, I'm not expecting it. On the other hand, if you are actually in the process of putting a system together anyway, then it's this exercise is really nothing more than expanding on your own shopping a little bit. How many people are actually planning to put a system together? Okay, well, only 2, but that's okay. Yeah.
I'm going to do this one.
All right, so getting back to Scratch.
Didn't you say we had a homework assignment from Scratch?
Not yet.
Not yet, but
Not
it will
yet.
be coming up.
Yeah, this is the big one is the project, that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Most of you have the stuff already, and someone has already turned in something, so now you have to add some more to it. Is it significantly more, or do you have to just change a little bit?
It shouldn't be too bad. I just need to go back in and add prices and add the part about like how long you think the system will last.
Yeah. Okay. So that should not be too bad. I mean, it's just looking at the price again.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So getting back to Scratch, someone showed me a program earlier at the beginning of the class, and it's already pretty nice. I mean, you have the jumping action and all that stuff. So what I want to do today is to